Welcome back to Moko Plays Satisfactory. Last episode we did quite a lot of refactoring of our steel production there, scaling it up, kind of upgrading what we're getting out of those raw resources to make use of our new Mark IV belts. So we're now doing things like tapping pure nodes to extract 480 of whatever the resource is per minute, to really enable us to scale things out wider and produce more. And that includes these encased industrial beams that we've got coming into this storage here. So that was one big goal for us, and the next one really, which we are going to jump right into today, is to go and look at our oil production. A couple of episodes ago we set up some temporary oil production just so that we could get basic plastic and rubber up and running that we would need to be able to advance up the tech tree. Now there's a couple of problems with what we've got there already. One, it's too small, we're not really generating very much resources. Two, we're only generating those two resources, plastic and rubber, and one resource that we are definitely going to need is fuel, which you can see ticking away for our jetpack in the lower left. We're going to need to generate some fuel and to package it, otherwise I'm not going to be able to do things like this anymore, and that's just, you know, that would be a huge inconvenience and no fun for anyone. And the third thing is that to get the oil up and running quickly and easily, we didn't really do anything with the byproducts. Most of the oil production that goes through refineries takes in one or two things and generates the thing you want and something else that you then have to deal with. And the temporary method for dealing with it that we went with was to just store the extra heavy oil residue, in this case, in these storage buffers, and periodically that's going to do exactly what it's done here, which is fill them all up, backfill these pipes here, fill the outputs of the machines, and halt production. So what we're going to do is refactor this to get rid of the need to periodically come in and flush this all away. We're going to make better use of the byproducts and try and get things working in at least a closed enough system, or worst case, if we do still have anything that's being produced that's excess at the end, we'll make sure it's a solid thing, or we'll package it if it's a liquid and we'll feed it into an awesome sink, so that way that we can at least just leave production running and it'll just run as long as it needs to. So that's kind of where we are, really. I want to just grab all of those. And let's take a look at the existing. So we started out with this crude oil down here, which is a normal node. Run this oil extractor just at base clock speed to get its 120 per minute, and that's what we're running into our 4 refineries. I am pretty sure somewhere near here there was another patch of crude oil that we could tap. Two more patches. They're impure, but those two would give us the same output that this one normal node is giving us. And the other thing that we can do is consider some recipes that make more efficient use, that give you greater yield from the crude oil than the standards. I'm not sure what we've got by way of alternate recipes, so let's take a quick look at that. We'll take stock of the situation and figure out a plan from there. What's going to be the easiest way to do this? If we jump in and let's grab an extra refinery so that we don't interrupt production. Okay, we've got the defaults, which are plastic and residual plastic, rubber, residual rubber, fuel, residual fuel, but we don't really have any of the other alternatives there. What have we got going on with hard drive scanning? Nothing that helps us imminently here. I guess of these, the flexible framework's probably the best bet, but we've still got a few hard drives to scan through, so maybe those will give us something in terms of alternate recipes to work with here. Alright, so from what's in this area, we have water if we need it, got these two impure nodes, plus the normal node that we tapped already, plus a pure node over there. Which, that makes me wonder if expanding oil production over in this direction, doing something here, makes more sense, because if we go and tap this one pure node and transport our normal node that we've already got, that's going to give us way more than tapping those two impure nodes and feeding them into this platform we're on right now. So I think that's what we'll do. I think we'll say oil production over there. And we'll grab from our normal node here. And grab from the pure node, which was somewhere over there. Pipe those into one location and then figure out what we're going to do with it. Okay, cool. That's a plan. I'm going to pause recording, go set up a platform. I'll run pipes from those two locations into that central new platform, and we'll take that as an oil hub from there. So yeah, check back in a moment. Alright, one thing that I didn't consider was that if we're working with a refinery on a pure node, that's going to give us, well, when we overclock it anyway, it's going to give us more than our existing Mark 1 pipeline can handle. That only covers us up to 300 meters cubed of fluid per minute, so we could completely overclock our normal node for that, but we're going to have too much throughput there. So what we want to do is get ourselves onto this next tier of pipeline engineering. We had most of this stuff already anyway. I went ahead and handcrafted some heavy modular frames, and then I went exploring the world looking for alternative recipes, so I've actually found tons by the looks of it there, which is nice because we haven't fully automated those yet. But everything else is normal stuff at this point. This is going to let us double our capacity for pipelines, which we are definitely going to use in this build, so let's get that unlocked right now.
Milestone reached. Improved pipelines and pumps can now be constructed, capable of handling increased throughput of any fluid, as well as providing increased pressure handling for better vertical transport, respectively.
In fact, while I'm here, let's at least add the last tier 6 node selected. Again, it looks like we've got everything we need for this, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, did spend a fair amount of time exploring. That got us some additional plastic and rubber recipes, which is good going. I also, to aid with that exploring, I did set up a temporary like generation of packaged fluid. I literally just dropped down the oil extractor into a refinery and started packaging up some fluid there, which I'll show you in a second. That was just a temp, so we're going to tear that down in a moment. The other thing that I did, because we are going to be working with refineries quite a lot, and that involves this kind of setup where you've potentially got a fluid and a solid going in, potentially a fluid and a solid going out, and it just becomes a bit of a pain to do just like slightly tedious to do the routing of the pipes over the conveyor belts and that sort of thing. So I set up this here blueprint, which we're going to be using for a refinery which handles solid and liquid. So let's jump up here and take a look. So nothing drastically new than what we've seen before. That's tonight. Because we have the two inputs here, one for solid and one for liquid, it does mean raising one above the other. I think previous builds in this playthrough have been running pipes at ground level and raising belts above them by stacking splitters like this. That becomes a bit of a challenge when working within the constraints of the blueprint, because the refinery itself is so big. You've only got like a square and a half with which to place things back here before it clips out the bounds of the blueprint. And just doing that while having everything raised enough, essentially, if you try and like have these back here at this location and then run your belts down, into the input. It's too steep a curve for the belts. So instead we went with belts at the ground level and pipes raised up. The easy way to do that is just drop down a pipeline support at the edge like here, lift it up 1 or 2 clicks, do the same thing at the other side, and then just run your pipes down the entire length of the build that you're doing. And then drop in your junction cross, just hold control to get the grid line with the fluid input. So it's relatively easy to do. I'm sure we'll have to do some ad hoc doing of those, so you'll see me do that at some point, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, this design's pretty basic. It's 3 refineries. We've got power. We don't have any recipes set on them. What I did want to do was come back here now we've got our Mark II pipelines and make sure that our main line for input and for output of fluid is all using that. And the other thing that I think I will do is to set up a couple of different variations of this blueprint, because it'll be a rare or maybe even never happen that we'll have solid input and liquid input and solid output and liquid output. So we maybe will just want to make some variations on this and save those, just to save us from like having to delete stuff or have like extra stuff that doesn't need to be there really. Yeah, so let's get those coloured. Now we've got those in. We'll save over the existing one here. That should be going into there. And in fact, I'm just going to change the name to make it easier. I noticed that it was cutting off after the start of the description, so the most important bit for us is going to be able to see what's solid and liquid. Right, okay. In fact, I think we can go. That'll make sense to me. Yeah, so you may have noticed there as well, we've got more recipes to work with while I was going exploring the world and clearing a big chunk of the map actually for hard drives. I ran right around this area here and picked up maybe 10 hard drives in total. A couple of the recipes that we ran into were recycled plastic and recycled rubber, which are really useful for increasing the yield that you can get out of the amount of oil that you're putting into a system. But are just slightly complicated. It does kind of involve a certain amount of using oil to make plastic, to then take that plastic to make rubber, to then take some of that rubber and make plastic from it again. But you can get really high yields from doing that stuff. We'll look at a map of it in a second. This over here is where we're going to be working. I just put those down to get an idea of space. And this over here is that pure oil node. And this is where I dropped down, like I say, just some temporary, a quick win to get some packaged fuel. So this is just running oil into one refinery, making fuel. The fuel is then going into this machine, which we haven't seen before, which is a packager, which takes a liquid and a container and outputs you the packaged version of it. And that was just running into storage here, so giving us lots of packaged fuel. Hopefully we have enough room for that. We do. And because there's a byproduct, which is polymer resin of this fuel recipe, we're just running all of that straight into an awesome sink so that it didn't get clogged up and back up production, and so that it generated us some coupons. Just let's grab those while we're here. But we have 4,500 packaged fuel now, so that's going to do us for a very long time. So yeah, let's just get rid of this stuff now that we don't need it. We will still be making packaged fuel as part of our setup, but we'll do that in a more sustainable way. So yeah, this is our pure oil node. At default clock speed we get 240 per minute. If we... where are my power shards? If we overclock this to get as much oil as we can do, it takes us all the way up to 600 per minute. So yeah, that's why we needed to unlock those Mark II belts. Going to get rid of this platform because I don't think we're going to actually be building anything over here. I think we're going to do all of our build in one place. This was just a constructor to make the empty containers, by the way, which is just plastic in and gives you empty containers out. So let's get rid of that stuff. And then we're going to run our oil pipeline along here. Over here, and we'll raise it up to get it onto this platform, which is where we're going to be working. The other thing that I did, you may notice we've got this pipeline here. This is pretty cool. This is using pipeline wall supports to run it underneath our like our essentially access road, for want of a better word. Yeah, I just thought that was nicer than having a bunch of pipeline above the ground. Plus, I really liked that we happened to, whoops, from the level we were already working at here, we kind of got to this overhang, and I just think this is such a cool look that we run right into it. It's so easy to just like lift your production up high and just place down a ton of concretes and foundations and steel and stuff like that and have everything looking really industrialized. But I do kind of want to, especially in this biome here, if we can do, I want to kind of embrace this, you know, not get rid of all of the nature, because like I came over here to look at the pure oil node and I was like, wow, this whole area is just really gorgeous looking. So yeah, I do want to kind of avoid just making this be tons of, you know, shapeless concrete foundations and pipes running all over the place and stuff like that. I'd like to hide away some of the workings as much as possible. It's going to be a challenge because we're going to be building big here, but I do want to embrace it where we can do. So that's the oil from the normal node that we already had tapped over here, which means that this production now is actually sitting here doing nothing. So I'm just going to tear all of this down. It served us well, but is now surplus to requirements. No, let's keep that platform in because that gives us ground level access. Did I miss something? Almost always. There's going to be one odd little thing floating in the middle of the air there, I'm pretty sure. We still have power to this stuff. Power is something else we should be thinking about right now, actually. Producing about 1800. Production spiking up and down a little bit there. I'm not quite sure why that would be. Anyway, our max consumption and our capacity are right around the same line. We are going to be adding several buildings over here. So it's just worth keeping an eye on. I'll probably go ahead and upgrade the coal power plants again to help us with this build. Although we are ultimately going to be using some of this build to make fuel. And that we should be able to add into our new fuel generators. So once this builds up and running, it should be more or less self-sustaining. I say more or less because much of this build is going to have pipelines with fluids going through them there, and that always means that it's slightly less reliable unless you're very good at the logistics of managing the fluid dynamics, which I will not claim to be. You always end up with a certain amount of things dipping up and down due to, you know, if one pipe gets slightly backed up or whatever, there's an effect that people online talk about called sloshing, which I think is where if you've got the end of a pipeline and it's full and then the other end of the pipeline's empty, it doesn't just transfer linearly. The fluid kind of moves back and forward throughout the pipe. So yeah, long story short there is we'll add fuel generators here, but we do want to make sure that we've still got a good solid amount of coal generation there to keep things going. Power storage is something else we should consider as well. We haven't done any of that. Let's get that on our to-do list. Not sure at which point we unlocked that, but that's definitely going to be something that we want to get to. Alright, so here's where we're going to be building. We have this oil from the normal node. We have our pure node just down over here that we'll want to run a pipeline up to. And that's obviously going to need a pump to give it the head lift to get up from sea level to where we're working here. Really the next step is to plan out what the build's actually going to look like. And so I'll probably be using some external tool to do that. So let's take a quick pause and we'll have a look at that in a second. Alright, I think we're ready to take a look at that build there now. So let me hop over to the calculator. I think we've looked at this before. This is satisfactorytools.com, an incredibly useful resource for calculating and visualizing big and complex builds. How we're using it here is I've been through already and added the alternate recipes we have that are relevant, like the recycled plastic and recycled rubber and any of the other ones. There's a one somewhere, heavy oil residue, that we've got. I don't have all recipes put in because we haven't unlocked some recipes that may be relevant here, so I am only adding the alternate ones that we've already got access to. The other thing that I'm going to do is hop into the items and input tab here, and I'm going to limit the crude oil input to the 900 that we've got in this area. So essentially it's going to calculate using recipes. Anything else here, including probably it'll factor in some water, so long as we tell it that's okay, which I think is fine to do. But it's going to use no more than our 900 crude oil. So we'll hop into the production tab and we're going to tell it what we want out of this build. So we definitely want some packaged fuel, and 10 of those per minute I think would be fine. We're going to use it, but really packaged fuel for right now we're only going to be using it in our jetpack, so that's absolutely fine. Now what we want to do really is take the rest of that crude oil and turn it into things that we're going to need quite a lot of, and we just want to kind of balance those out. So that's plastic, it's rubber, and that is fuel, which we will pump into fuel power plants. So let's toggle this over to maximize for everything apart from the packaged fuel, and what that should give us here is equal amounts, so 360-ish fuel per minute, 360 rubber per minute, and 360 plastic per minute. All it needs is crude oil, and it needs water, so we're going to have to add some water pumps there. And this flow here is what I was talking about in terms of a slightly complex, slightly circular flow with the recycled rubber and recycled plastic recipes. We take fuel and use it to make recycled rubber. We feed about 3/4 of that rubber into a recycled plastic build. We take some amount of that plastic, maybe 1/4 of it or something like that, feed that back into our recycled rubber build. It essentially just massively increases the output that we can get from this. If we take a look at the comparable versions without having those two recipes, we drop down to like 200 and to less than 300 of each of those. Which, I'm not going to lie, would be simpler. It's lower yield, but simpler, and it's smaller. Let's take a look at buildings needed. Constructor, packager, and 41 refineries versus if we do it with those. Constructor, packager, and 80 refineries to get an extra 60-ish of each of those per minute. I'm gonna say we should do it without using the alternate recipes in this case. 80 refineries is a mammoth build to do. So yeah, let's say we don't want to make use of those right now while acknowledging that it would be more efficient to do so. Instead we need a tiny bit of water, our 900 crude oil. We're going to need some refineries. Constructor for our empty containers for the packaged fuel, and a packager to package that up, and then everything else is just going to be refineries. And importantly, it's not going to need any looping of plastic into rubber into plastic into rubber, and we're not going to end up with any undesired outputs here. So long as we have enough space to store our 300-ish rubber or 300-ish plastic, then that'll just keep cycling through those eventually, and we'll walk through how we're going to avoid the system backing up when we get there. And that'll generate nearly 300 fuel per minute, which... got back into the game here. Fuel generators take 12 per minute, so what's that, 295 over 12? We're going to want to build 25 fuel generators here. Each of those will create 150 megawatts, so 50. That's going to pretty much quadruple our power generation. Obviously, it'll take a certain amount of power to run this build with the 30 or however many it was refineries, each taking 30 megawatts. But it's definitely going to be a net gain on the power front as well as on the plastic and rubber front. I think that's the way that we're going to go. Let me just take a quick glance through here, make sure there's no other materials that we do want to get out of this. I don't think so. Petroleum coke we can also make as part of this build if we needed to. I've never gone down the coke side of things. I used as a less efficient coal replacement or for aluminium refinement. Right, yeah, the aluminium build does take coal when we get there. But I think that would just complicate things. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go with that build there. So that was... one constructor, one packager, and 41 refineries. So let's get those onto our to-do list. Constructor and packager will be easy enough to do. 41 refineries will be slightly more challenging to space out appropriately. Hence why we made sure we made blueprints for them just a little bit earlier. Alright, it's going to take some serious logistic planning, so let me go away and scratch my head over this, play about with some placements and stuff, and we'll come back once we've got at least the start of that refinery build. Okay, here's where we are. This is not yet complete, but a good level of progress to show off. So yeah, I thought we'd check in on that front. I did simplify the recipe a bit more, even by taking out, I forget what it was now. It was one of the diluted recipes, I think. Essentially, it was whatever we were doing that was going to make use of this polymer resin. Instead, by taking out the recipe that was going to make use of that, then we just calculate that as this byproduct. that's fine. We're just going to run that straight into an awesome sink and generate some coupons with it, which we can easily handle. And what that removes is essentially the need to run any water into this, removes the need to do any further looping, so really all we have to do is just make the plastic, send some of it to make some canisters, and then we've just got our plastic, make the rubber, just store the rubber, take the byproduct of the plastic and the rubber, which is the heavy oil residue, and use that to make our fuel. So much more straightforward. We have definitely lost some yield from this oil here. I think we started out something like 360 of each of the 3 components that we want to make here. So we're losing maybe a sixth of our yield, all told here, from this 900 crude oil. The simplicity of this build now is makes that really desirable, as well as the fact that we're doing it with, you know, I think pretty much half of the machines compared to what we were first looking at. So yeah, we're going to save on power draw there as well. So definitely a worthwhile trade-off in my point of view. Here's our control board for this project. So what we've got so far is the 15 plastic refineries, which I've not fully ticked off yet because I haven't ran power and sense checked all the connections. But yeah, we want to make refineries for rubber and for fuel. Want to sink off the polymer resin from the side, add overflows for all of the solid products that we're doing, and then we need to go on and make our heavy oil residue refineries, and then just the last little bit. And then, no small feat as well, is making fuel generators to make use of all that fuel. But here's where we are so far with our 15 oil refineries. So this was the refinery blueprint that we were looking at earlier, which just drops down 3 of these. So this build was way easier than it would have been without using that blueprint. All of them taking crude oil in and outputting the heavy oil residue as well as the plastic. And what I did add was an engineering floor underneath here, just for the outputs. So the heavy oil residue is going to come out from this line from the first run of 9 refineries, and then from this line from the second row of 6 of them. Similarly, our plastic's going to run down here, and we'll just run those on conveyors back towards the front of the platform here, lift them up and put them into storage, probably over here temporarily. So yeah, that's where we are now. I'm going to hook the power up in a moment and not connect anything though. We'll connect everything on the inputs at one go, and then it's on to making the rubber refinery, so we'll probably check in after that's done. Alright, we're back with some progress. So we now have plastic and rubber completely set up and ready to rock and roll. Started to build out the residual fuel refineries there that are going to take the heavy oil residue produced by these and turn those into fuel. There's still quite a few elements to do, but that's most of the big parts of the build, at least until we get to fuel generators over that side. Let's take a quick tour. So this is the plastic platform that we were looking at earlier. I've added another platform here for rubber, which follows pretty much the same pattern. This was again just 15 of these refineries, dropping down 5 of our 3 refinery blueprints. I've been kind of decorating as I go. It's still kind of work in progress. Like we've got like this platform here is temporary, for example, but we've added in some walkways, added stuff on the engineering floor, so that's kind of part done with these walls here. Need to go around and do the same thing on this side, on this engineering floor. But overall it's kind of taken shape. I feel like I've done sensible things with where I've added extraneous bits here. Like we've got this kind of walkway back to the main build here, and this here is an access from the engineering floor down to ground level, which I'm never ever going to use in reality because I've got a jetpack, but it's just, you know, it's cool that it's there. And similarly, we've got the raw oil production or crude oil production coming in from both sides here. So that's the first one from our original normal node over in that direction towards the main base. And I've piped in from our second oil extractor over in this direction here. So that's going from here. This is going to generate our 600 per minute. This is cool. I kind of figured out a way to get the pipe sort of soft clipping through the sand here, which I think looks quite natural. That basically involved placing platforms up to this height, I think, deleting the bottom ones, and then using the wall mount for the pipe on the bottom of here kind of forces it down into the ground slightly, which I like. It was finicky, but I think it's led to a cool and quite realistic look in some ways. Here's where we're splitting off. So the first factory is going to use all of the oil from node 1 and some of the oil from node 2 here. The remainder is going to go over to rubber. We've no way to... that's a lie. I was going to say we've no way to enforce that ratio, but we have, because we've got a valve here, which I have set to use the 147 per minute. So in theory, the 600 per minute comes down here, maxes out this pipe, runs into this splitter, and then from here only what's needed by the plastic factory is drawn that way and goes that way. That shouldn't really be necessary. In theory, the whole thing should kind of load balance itself. Once all of the inputs and pipes and stuff are filled and backflow and saturate here, then everything should just go this way. But the valve does kind of exist for this reason as well, so I've got one in there, and we'll see whether that seems like it's making any difference. Yeah, and so that's the first two platforms more or less done, except for some minor parts of aesthetics. And then we hit this area here to expand into to do the heavy oil residue production and then the fuel generation. And just like this biome's so cool that I didn't want to take over this entire bay area by putting platforms all over it and stuff. So I added this nice glass walkway to extend us out beyond the bay to the start of the ocean, where things are a little bit more bland and I don't mind building. And I kind of like this look. I think it works pretty well. I think it's going to look pretty good. So this is 3 of our 8 heavy oil what's called residual fuel refineries, and that means that we need 5 more, which I'm going to add in here. Going to do that next, and then we'll expand out into this direction for a platform of 25 fuel generators. So yeah, that keeps all of the parts that we need, the plastic and the rubber, over closer to the mainland, which means that we can do things like belting them back into storage and then sending them onto other factories. And if we want to add some ground-based transport like trains or trucks, we can do all of that around here somewhere. And then for the other products that really don't go anywhere, they just go into fuel generators and generate fuel, which doesn't have an output that we need to manage. That then gets further away from the mainland and from our main base. So I think that setup's going to work. It's almost like I thought about it, which is kind of half true. Some amount of this was figuring it out as we go. So yeah, still got some work to do to polish off the aesthetics here. Still got platform 3 to really complete the build on, and then we need a big platform for the fuel generators and need to build all of those and hook up all the pipework into that and that sort of thing. And so it dawned on me, as I was making a trip back to base to pick up some parts, that really this build's gone on, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, something like that at this point. And we've still got a good chunk of it left to do. So we should, while we are working here, be generating some parts for the space elevator. So that's what I want to go and do now, rather than finish all of this build, set up our space elevator production, and then have a bunch of time to kill while we're waiting for that to go through and process. I'm sure we'd find something to do, of course, but it just feels like, while investing time in a significant build like this, especially while I'm taking the extra time to decorate and to think about aesthetics, that we should be doing something towards our main goal in the background. So yeah, let's run in and get those space elevator parts going. I do also right now want to unlock something from the MAM tree, which is the smart splitter, and that'll help us in managing the overflows when we've generated too much plastic and too much rubber for either what we want to store or what we need to use in any other builds. Want to send those through to a sink, and smart splitters are the best way to do that stuff. So let's do that now, actually. Oh, we must have had a hard drive scanning. None of those are particularly exciting. Let's go with that. So in the Caterium tree here, we went... Some of this might have been off stream, so as a quick recap, we went raw Caterium into Caterium ingots. Ingots into quickwire. We've got that build set up over on the far side of the base from where I'm standing now. Caterium electronics just needed a lot of quickwire, so we dropped some of that in there. So then we've got extra stuff here like zip lines, stun rebars used for one of the guns, which whatever, I never bother with those, especially now I'm on passive. And then we can come down into here and unlock power poles Mark II, which is handy, so let's grab that. They work the same way as power poles Mark I, except they have additional connectors, so... Thanks. So here, where we have a limit of 4, and then it's full and we can't connect anything else, if we upgrade that to a power pole Mark II, we now have 7 connectors to work with. Other than that, they are exactly the same. It's handy in some cases, definitely the sort of thing that might be handy to drop in the middle of a blueprint that needs a lot of connections. I tend to not use them too much because I place all of my wires by just hitting wire, running it, and then dropping a power line where I need it, and there is no way. There is a way, and that's how you do it, I've just figured out, to make that be a power pole Mark II. Well, today I learned. No, see, it didn't run the wire. Yeah, okay. I'm right. So essentially, that works the same as if you just come in and like grab your power poles Mark I and stuff, drop those down. You've then still got to come back here and find where the cable connects to and then run the cable in and stuff like that. That's the same reason why I've never had power poles on my hotbar. I just go, right, cable, find a power line, drop it down, next one, drop it down. It's just way quicker. So it would be a nice quality of life thing if we could say always build Mark II poles while you do this, but I don't think there is a way to do that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about power pole Mark IIs. Okay, what else have we got here? AI limiters. Let's grab that while we're in here. That gets used for some advanced electronics, including the smart splitter, which, yay, thankfully we've got enough. Those AI limiters that I've got on hand are ones I found while exploring the world. Exploring the world is cool because it lets you just jump straight in and grab stuff like this. And we still have 9 AI limiters, so we can build, I think it's 1 per smart splitter. Let's take a look. Yeah, 1 each. So we need to craft some more AI limiters because we're going to drop down way more than 9 smart splitters in the course of our time in the game, but for right now, just being able to place a couple of these will make a lot of difference. So we'll come back to that when we do the overflows for plastic and rubber. I'll make sure to do that bit on stream so we can talk about it. We need, for our space elevator, we need in the top right there 500 of thingy number 1 and 100 of thingy number 2. These parts are modular engines, which need motors, fine, automating those. Rubber, fine, automated that previously and we're going to re-automate that very soon. Smart plates, haven't got it automated, looks like we don't have any stored up anywhere. That's a slight problem. And we also need the adaptive control units, which take automated wiring. Haven't got it automated, but I am standing on a storage container full of them, so hopefully we've got enough. Circuit boards, same deal. Not automated, but we've got quite a few in storage there. Heavy modular frames, we've never really automated or produced anything other than handcrafting the odd one. I do have some from exploring the world, but probably, what do we need, 200 of those all told to make 100 of these. Might have enough. Computers, we've never really looked at yet. So this one's maybe a little bit out of reach right now. This one should be in reach, but we need to solve the smart plating problem first. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to come and look at this now, rather than waiting until the entire oil build is done. Yeah, okay. So what we should do is set one of these going for smart smart plating. I was so convinced I had a storage container full. But I also can't imagine it being anywhere other than at the main base or right here. Okay. Right, smart plating. Reinforced iron plates and rotors. Oh, there is an alternate recipe, I think. Made in a manufacturer with reinforced iron plates, rotors, and plastic. Given we don't have infinite self-generating plastic right now, until we finish that build, let's go with the default recipe, because we have... Hey, this is where I was... Oh, I just got myself so confused. I saw that there was a recipe set on that machine, and I was like, oh, I must have been making smart plates here. No, that's literally what I just clicked into 2 seconds ago. This is what happens when you spend all of your time looking at factories and builds and running wires and stuff. You go dumb. You go dumb in the brain. Right, these can be fully overclocked because we are going to need lots, question mark, of smart plates. Right, I tell you what will help is adding these to the to-do list. Holding shift and clicking to add 10 at a time over on the right of the screen there. 500. We need 1,000 smart plates. Okay. Let's add these as well while we're on. That's adding 20 at a time. That's interesting. I've never noticed that before, I guess because the default recipe creates 2. Okay. Yeah, so we've already got more than enough heavy modular frames, got enough circuit boards on us, that's good. We still need to make about 50 computers though. Automated wiring, that's fine, we've got more than that in storage already. So smart plating is the thing that we care about right now. Right, and we need, what did I say? 1,000 of them. Yes, 1,000. Okay. Let's get that back to the top, thank you. Yeah, so we should overclock this stuff. Reinforced iron plates and rotors, remember that. Reinforced iron plates. Rotors. Let's just chuck in everything that I'm currently holding of those, which is not all that much. Then let's go and grab some more. Alright, those are going into that storage here. Now, is it worth dropping down a manufacturer? Of course it is. I don't think we've placed any manufacturers yet, but they're essentially just big assemblers with the same sort of setup when it comes to running belts into them and that sort of thing. Maybe I should have done that further away. Let's drop it in the middle, and then if we need to add another couple of plates here for belt management, we can do. Right. Give me modular engines, and I will give you motors and rubber and smart plating. That was a stupid place to try and run a belt from. Alright, yeah, they're all ground level inputs. Let's do that, given that we're already working at this height. Then let's do I really don't even need to like split or merge here because we're only going to have one manufacturer running. Oh boy, that power pole's full. Sure would be nice if we had a way to give it more outputs, eh? Well, bam! Done. Right, motors and rubber. This is going to look ridiculous. But I'm tempted to do it anyway. Let's drop that there. Let's drop that there. So you are going to be motors. You are going to be rubber. Hey, it even left me some left over. That's nice. Right, let's get some signage on here. That looks so stupid. Why didn't I just put that container down at ground level here? Because I am dumb. Right. Smart plating. Hello? Paste? Yes? There we go. You are motors, and you are rubber. Oh, and we need output storage for this as well. And we need to run belts. It's important when you want to produce things that you run belts from the thing where you're storing the thing to the place where you want to produce the thing. This I have learned through my 500 hours playing this game. And it's important when you're running belts that you run them to the right container. This I have also learned. Yes? Okay, yes. They're on their way. Cool. Alright. Yeah, I think that's probably gonna do it for now. In fact, let's mark that as half done. Because I do want to consider the adaptive control units. But let's call that a problem for slightly future us. Let's call this an episode. Next episode we'll come back. We'll think about those adaptive control units. In the meantime, offline, I'm going to keep on cracking on with that fuel, oil, plastic, rubber monstrosity build. And yeah, probably we'll come back with that in a point where we're ready to do the last little bits in terms of managing the overflows and then connect it up and get everything running. So I'll see you guys then. Thanks as always for watching, and yeah, we'll catch up on the next episode of Moko Plays Satisfactory. Cheers.